It is the year Cosmic Era 71. Mankind has been divided between the normal humans of Earth, known as Naturals, and the genetically altered superhumans called Coordinators, who live in space colonies that are known as plants. After a tragic event known as the Bloody Valentine occurred, war breaks out and the two sides began fighting, with the Earth being represented by the Earth Alliance and the plants being represented by the Zodiac Alliance of Freedom Treaty, or ZAF for short. The two factions fought for months as ZAF quickly overpowered the Earth Alliance thanks to the use of mobile suits. The Earth Alliance plans to fight back by developing 5 prototype mobile suits called Gundams, as well as a carrier ship called Archangel on the neutral orb Union colony of Heliopolis. When ZAF learns what the Earth Alliance is planning, they commence an attack on the colony and steal 4 of the Gundams. During the attack, a young student and coordinator, Kira Yamato, pilots the GAT-X-105 Strike Gundam to fend off the invaders. The survivors board the Archangel and begin their journey to Earth. Kira becomes the official pilot of the Strike Gundam, and throughout the series, he must defend the Archangel from the ZAF forces while dealing with the fact that he must now fight his childhood friend turned enemy, Athrun Zala. When people talk about the story of Gundam Seed, they usually bring up how similar it is to First Gundam in terms of how its characters parallel First Gundam characters, as well as how the story progresses during the first half of the series. After seeing Seed, I can understand where they are coming from to a degree, but we got to keep in mind that most, if not all, Gundam shows had aspects borrowed from the original series, so naturally, Seed will also have things about it that is taken from First Gundam. On the other hand, I felt that Seed played it too safe, and just resorted to a lot of the standard things we already seen before in the franchise. 2 factions at war with each other, a young boy and his friends get caught up in the middle of the war, the first battle takes place on a colony, most of the cliches are present here. The series deals with the issue of genetic manipulation and how individuals who had their DNA modified before birth struggle to coexist with those who were born with natural genes. I thought this was a unique way to go over the issues of racism as well as the idea of genetic engineering, but I feel it could have been handled better if they toned down some of the melodrama that goes on in the show. Now, when it comes to how Seed handles its anti-war messages, I feel it can get incredibly preachy, and I'm not really fond of how they made war feel more like a battle between good versus evil as opposed to a battle of ideology. Gundam, with the possible exception being G Gundam, has never really been about a battle between good versus evil, nor was it about constantly beating you in the head with anti-war messages. So personally, I wish they handled this better. Another thing to comment on would be the flashbacks, and there is quite a bit of them in Seed. While it's not as big of a problem here as it would be later on in Seed Destiny, it is still kind of annoying and can slow down the pacing of the series. When it comes to the characters in Seed, my opinion of most of them are rather mixed. For protagonists, I didn't mind Kira that much in the beginning. Shocking, I know. In the beginning, he seemed like the kind of character you could sympathize with considering the fact that he is the only coordinator on the Archangel who has no choice but to fight against his own people, including his best friend. I liked the concept at first, but as time went on and I started to think about it more, the more I find the idea redundant when considering the fact that Turn A, the Gundam series that came before Seed, had already used this idea. As far as Kira himself goes, well, I liked him for the majority of the first half. Unfortunately, at a certain point in the series, everything about Kira's character development takes a turn for the worst, and by the second half, he pretty much devolves into a Gary Stu. I'm not gonna lie. I definitely consider Athrun to be the better character out of the two. At least he had flaws as well as inner conflicts that he had to deal with throughout the show. As for some of the others, well, I have almost nothing positive to say regarding Lacus's character. I mean, she was harmless at first, but holy fuck, does her Mary Sue levels just skyrocketed as the series went on. And if you thought she was bad here, just wait till the sequel, it gets even worse. Kagawa I also thought was pretty irritating throughout the series. Not to the extent as Lacus, but there were times where she really got on my nerves. Believe you me, however, this is tamed when compared to how she is in Seed Destiny. Mula Flaga is a pretty badass character, but I think that mostly has to do with the fact that he is a Slager/Char/Quattro clone. As for the other Char clone, Rala Crusade, I think he's pretty good. He's one-dimensional, yes, but he's calculating, menacing, and just really damn entertaining. Nicole, Yizak, and Diarca are okay. I think they're all fine how they are. Flay gets a special mention for me because she gets a lot of flack from fans for being manipulative, hateful, and just a really unlikable bitch. But that's what makes her an interesting character if you ask me. She's so bitchy and hateful towards coordinators that you can't help but know more about her. All in all though, while I do have some positive things to say about certain characters, most of them are very hit and miss. I honestly think most of the side characters are rather forgettable, with a few exceptions like Andrew Woltfeld. I just don't find anything interesting to say about them. Another thing I don't care for is how a lot of the characters in this series seem to have traits similar to Amuro Ray from First Gundam, in which they are incredibly angsty, whiny, and they constantly get overdramatic. It's annoying. So, what do I think of the story and characters of Seed overall? Well, I will say that it's not the worst I've seen in a Gundam series. The story has its moments that I genuinely liked, and I honestly can get down with some of the characters here. But I will say that it is definitely a step backwards compared to the previous installments. Gundam Seed was the very first Gundam series to be fully animated by digital computers. So with that in mind, how do I feel about the art and animation as a whole? Well, personally, I think it's just okay. While I think it looks very colorful, in terms of actual designs and animation, I find it lacking a lot. The character designs are done by Hirai Hisashi, who is notorious for having a lot of his characters look the same, with the main difference that separates them being the eye color and hairstyles. Honestly, I'm not all that bothered by the character designs, as I'm used to seeing anime characters who have similar facial designs and whatnot, but I do acknowledge that it's a problem. First off, I do agree that a lot of the characters have repetitive designs when you do take away the eye color and hair. Some distinct facial features would have probably helped diverse the cast a little more. They did attempt this with some of the side characters, as they actually do have some unique facial features, but that's about it. The second issue is that I feel that the facial structure of some of the characters just look unnatural and inconsistent at times. Overall, I do wish Hisashi made the characters look a bit more diverse, but I'm not completely turned off by it. The mech designs, on the other hand, are kinda cool. I really like the idea of phase shift armor that the Gundams have. When they aren't active, they are completely gray, but when powered, the color emerges and gives them a barrier that can withstand certain projectiles. While some of the Gundams have similar designs, they have their own unique gimmicks to make up for it. I especially like the Strike Gundam the most, mainly because I thought its ability to switch battle packs for various combat scenarios was a pretty cool idea for a Gundam. The Blitz is another favorite of mine. I like its ability to go invisible and how useful its shield weapon is. The original Duel is kinda mediocre, but I like its upgraded form a lot. The Buster is your standard long-range assault Gundam, and the Aegis has a really cool mobile armor form. However, the main suit of the series, the Freedom Gundam, kinda annoyed me because 1, it wasn't particularly all that original, and 2, I feel like most of the struggles pretty much fade away once it was introduced, considering the fact that most of the time Kira just beam spams and destroys huge waves of mobile suits with ease. In fact, that's another issue I have with Seed. Like the Gundams in Wing, it seems like the staff resorted to the same stupid overkill formula that I am not fond of whatsoever because it completely defeats the purpose of overcoming challenges, at least until they fight other mobile suits piloted by key characters. The animation itself is tolerable for the most part, but at times it can be choppy, and let's not forget the fact that there is stock footage here as well, and it can be just as bad as Wing depending on how you look at it. Overall, despite being animated with newer technology, I find the visual quality of Seed to be lacking with a lot of hiccups. It's tolerable, but personally, it's a far cry compared to most of the earlier entries. If there is one thing I can gush about Seed, it has to be the music. The music is absolutely fantastic. One of the best, if not the best soundtrack in the franchise. Not only is the background music in the anime simply marvelous to listen to, but we have bands and singers like TM Revolution and Nami Tamaki bring us nothing but J-pop gold. My personal favorite songs are definitely Invoke and Find a Way. I may hate Lacus, but I will say that her insert songs are pretty wonderful, although the dub versions are kinda meh. In general, you should definitely give the soundtrack a shot. It's amazing. The Japanese version is pretty good. There are some annoying performances here and there, but not too degrading. I don't know much about Kira Yamato's seiyuu, Soichiro Hoshi, but he was pretty decent in this series. Atherin is voiced by Akira Ishida. He is mostly known for voicing Kaworu from Evangelion, Gaara from Naruto, and the protagonist from Persona 3. Yizak is voiced by Tomokazu Seki, who previously voiced Domon in G Gundam. As much as I despise Lacus, I will say that Rie Tanaka had a fantastic performance as her, not to mention that she is a good singer. The English dub is okay. It's not bad, but definitely not a masterpiece either. The funny thing to note is that Matt Hill, Samuel Vincent, and Tony Sampson all had roles in this anime, and they played the main trio in Ed, Edd n Eddy. Matt Hill does a decent job as Kira. I didn't think it was that bad. Samuel Vincent is pretty good as Atherin. I saw no issues with his performance. Lacus' speaking voice, Chantal Strand, had a great performance as well. Diarca is voiced by Brad Swale. Most longtime fans may know him as Amuro from the original Gundam series, as well as Catra from Wing, and he is still awesome here. Mark Oliver was outstanding as Rala Crusade, by far the best performance in the dub. The rest of the actors and actresses can range from being decent to annoying, but overall, it doesn't hurt to give the dub a shot. In general, the anime is tolerable in both languages. When it comes to the Gundam fanbase, some people say that Seed was the show that started their love for the franchise. If it wasn't Gundam Wing or G Gundam that got them hooked, then it was most definitely Seed. So, after all this time, how well do I think Seed holds up? Well, while I personally thought it wasn't a masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination, I also thought it was not that bad. While I definitely prefer to watch most of the other installments that came before it, I find the entire experience to be kind of enjoyable. Granted, it still has a lot of problems in terms of the storytelling and character development, and the visuals has quite a bit of issues behind it, but it wasn't an insulting pile of goat shit like G-Saviour was. Some aspects of the narrative were entertaining, the visuals are very colorful and bright despite the issues I have with the aesthetics, and the music was great. The cosmic era of Gundam may get a lot of shit from people, and for very good reasons mind you, but I must remind everybody that not all of it was a total disaster. There was great potential for it, and the original Seed shows signs of that potential. Sadly, it was incredibly mismanaged. Before you ask, yes, I know that Seed had an HD remastered broadcast back around 2012, and that version actually addressed some of the issues I had with the original run, and the sharpened art and added scenes definitely add for more visual flavor, but it didn't fix everything that was wrong. If you've never seen a Gundam series before, or if you are a fan of the more modern Gundam shows, then I guess this would make a decent anime to watch regardless if you're going for the HD remaster or the original. But if you are like me and are more attached to the older Gundam shows, then I advise approaching it with caution. Gundam Seed would unfortunately mark a dark turn in the franchise, and the next show we will be looking at in the Gundam-A-Thon will not have a lot of positive praise. But for what the original Seed was, it was a decent experience. Final score, 5 out of 10.